The end of the year is a perfect time to do a reset of our spaces, whether that be our physical spaces like bedroom, office, whatever else, or our digital spaces, or also even our mental spaces. So today we're going to plan out my end of year reset process so that I can get cool, calm and collected for the next year ahead. In order to do my end of year reset planning, I'm going to be using this layout in the back of my journal. It just has a box for each of the spaces that I'm planning on doing a reset in, and then this office revamp space, because that is one of my resetting projects that's going to be the biggest. The first step of doing your yearly reset though is figuring out in particular, what do you want to reset? I find that the easiest way to think about this is in terms of what's bothering me. So which areas of my life, whether they be actual spaces or just ideas and themes in general, are the ones that aren't sitting quite right with me? Which ones could use a bit of a shake-up or a bit of a refresh? In order to do this, I effectively walk through my home in my mind and think about the different spaces in my home to start with. Are there any in particular that would be served by having a declutter and a tidy? Or are there any areas that I kind of dread going into because I get an uneasy feeling there? Not because it's a particularly scary space to be in, but it's just not as peaceful or nice to be in as it could be. As said though, this reset process doesn't have to just be limited to your physical spaces. It can also be your mental spaces or your digital spaces, and both of those are going to be going on my reset list. You can see that the physical areas that I'm playing around with are my office, bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen. I also want to do my digital spaces and my mental space, and an additional one that is in the physical realm is my stationery stash. That one in particular needs quite an overhaul. Of course, these areas are just the ones that I'm going to be focusing on, and I do encourage you to pick out areas that are going to be the most impactful for you. When you're picking your areas, do also be mindful of how much time you have left. I've given myself ample time to reset all of these areas before the new year starts, but often I do my resetting in the very last week of the year, so what can I reasonably fit into that period of time? Going in with a plan though, of course, makes the resetting process faster, so that does help, but we don't want to overload ourselves and then enter the new year stressed, rather than cool, calm and collected like we're trying for. Before I start writing down what I want to get done in each of these reset areas, I like to think about what an ideal outcome would be. So in terms of doing a stationary reset, what do I actually want this to look like come the end of the resetting process? This just helps me pick out tasks that are going to be the most impactful when it comes to doing that reset. So for instance, in terms of the stationary reset, I want all of my stationary pieces to have a set home in my office. I don't want things to be left on the desk because they don't actually have a place to be. I want to know where to find anything anytime I go to look for it, and I also only want to keep the things that are actually getting used and I actually enjoy using. There's not much point keeping a whole bunch of supplies that would be better used by somebody else. Similar idea for each of the other resets. So for the bedroom, what kind of feeling or vibe do I want to have when I go into my bedroom? And what kind of things that are in there at the moment are going against that? Things like clutter, things not having a place to be. When I walk into my wardrobe, I want to know that every piece of clothing in there is something that fits, something that makes me feel good. So do I need to go through all of my clothes and get rid of the ones that don't fit the bill? In thinking about these end visions though for each of the reset areas, we can then start to pick out tasks that are actually going to help us realize that. So if we go through one by one, say for the stationary one in particular, as part of this I want everything to have its own space. I only want to keep the things that are actually going to be the most useful. So as part of this, doing a declutter is going to be quite important. Once I've decluttered those items though, then I want to have them go to a place where they can be more useful. So go on to somebody else who's going to get more use out of them, whether that be just giving them away or by selling them or whatever else. Once those are gone though, then I need to think about the stuff that's going to be left over. Do I need to have a look at where things are stored currently and maybe shake that up a bit? So as part of the reset, I might want to do a review of my storage spaces. Once I know where everything's going to go though, or maybe once I've acquired new storage solutions or whatever else, then I need to put everything back in its new home. So reorganizing the remaining stationery. This reset is very much related to my office revamp, though the office revamp is much more of a project than the stationary reset. This one's really kind of centered around decluttering, whereas this one is kind of like a full overhaul. That's why it has so much more planning space compared to these other smaller resets. Because that one is more involved, I'm just going in and writing down a huge brain dump of all of the things that I can think of that are going to go into that office revamp. This will include things like tidying up and organizing, but it'll also be things like shopping for new items, doing some upgrades on some of my equipment, completely moving around my furniture, and other bits and pieces like that. While in this video we're just planning the resetting process and kind of going through what I'm going to do in each of these different areas, we are also going to have a series of videos coming out on the channel over the next week where we go through and actually do these resets. If that sounds like something you'd like to see, then make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss out. But the next reset that we're planning is my digital space. When it comes to the digital reset, this is very much about thinking about not just my kind of computer itself in terms of its files and the file arrangement in there, but also other spaces like social media, my email, web browsers and extensions, my phone. And again, if we start with the end in mind, I really want to be able to be intentional about all of the different spaces I'm using in the digital environment, and I also want to know where things are, make them very easy to find when it comes to my file management. Rather than listing this one out as specific actions, I'm going to put this one down as spaces to check. So for instance, my email inbox, my phone, computer files, any computer applications, my password manager, my iPad, and of course, any social media platforms. The social media aspect will be very much about like unfollowing, unsubscribing from things that don't really resonate anymore or aren't bringing me kind of like positive energy into my life, and also possibly finding some new ones. The next one I'm going to plan out is my bedroom reset. So like we talked about before, making this a very kind of peace-inducing place. Everything in there is something that I want to keep, is something that fits if it's clothing, isn't broken or anything like that. So the first step here is going to be doing a clothes declutter. Once the clothes are decluttered, we can then do a reorganization of them, so putting them back into spaces that actually make sense. And then after that, it's time to think about anything else we store in the bedroom. So this could be things like bags, suitcases, jewelry, accessories, anything like that, and going through and decluttering those items as well. I also would like to do a big clean and tidy up of that space, because I know that some of the surfaces in particular are getting a little bit dusty, and then we'll have to get rid of all of those decluttered items, whether that be donating them, selling them, or if necessary, putting them in the bin. The kitchen reset I know is going to be a bigger job, thus I gave it a bigger box. Not as big as the office revamp, but still larger than the bedroom reset or the bathroom reset. And the end vision here is kind of similar to the rest of them, so knowing where things are, only having the things that we actually use and are actually useful, but also making sure that things are clean and tidy. In particular, cleaning out like internal parts of drawers, internal parts of the fridge and pantry and freezer. Oftentimes the inside of our fridge in particular only gets a big clean out once a year, but before we do that, we actually have to take everything out and go through all of the items. So effectively what we're going to call a food declutter, and then also an other stuff in the kitchen declutter. Then once the decluttering process is done, we can clean out all of those spaces. One thing in particular that we want to do as part of the kitchen reset, because Vogel, my partner, has been going on about it for a long time, is doing a reset of the plastics drawer, or the drawer where we keep all of our plastic containers, because the plastic containers are abundant. We have quite a few of them. They're all still in good nick, but they don't stack nicely, which means that the organization in the drawer is a little bit chaotic. So reviewing the plastics drawer is going on the list. As part of that, we will then end up probably buying some new plastic items to replace old ones. And we're also going to want to buy some new storage for the fridge in particular, or at least I want to do that. So purchasing kitchen storage items. And then once we have those, we can then reorganize the kitchen. By that point, the kitchen will probably need to clean itself, so we can also just put clean the kitchen. So this is like the benches, the splashback, the oven, exhaust fan, that kind of thing. While that only looks like a list of 7 things, I can assure you that it will take pretty much a full day, if not more. The next space to plan the declutter of is going to be the bathroom, and this one in particular I'm thinking about our ensuite, so the bathroom next to our bedroom, because we have some things that are stored in the bathroom that don't necessarily need to be there, and then some things that are stored in the bedroom that would be better stored in the bathroom, like medications, our travel toiletries bag, that kind of stuff. This one again is going to be starting with a declutter because that is in dire need of doing. And then my end vision for this one is really about knowing that everything I have in my bathroom drawers is something that I'm actually going to use. We did a big yearly reset at the end of last year because we do it every year. And as part of that, I thought I only had kept things that I was going to use, but I know that there are several things in our bathroom drawers that I'm just never going to get around to using. There's not a lot of point in keeping them there and having them take up as much space as they are. So once we've done the decluttering of the bathroom items, I then want to reorganize those drawers so hopefully I can make space for things that aren't getting stored in there. For instance, my hairdryer, which is currently stored in our bedroom closet. We then also will need to get rid of a bunch of stuff, I'm pretty sure. Not so much in a gifting donating sense, unless there's anything that hasn't been used at all and is still within its expiry date, but mostly probably just getting rid of. By that point though, we'll probably need to do some cleaning of the bathroom. I know that the floors need mopping and vacuuming. We also need to clean the shower and then other bathroom surfaces. When it comes to the mental reset, now this one's very much about kind of mental decluttering, giving myself that cool, calm and collected feeling for moving into the new year. So this could be things like reflection, goal setting, that kind of thing. But I don't have a super clear picture at this point as to what I want my mental reset to look like in terms of action steps. If you have some ideas for them though, I would really love to hear about it. So what kind of things might you put on a mental reset checklist? Things that you would do in order to be cool, calm and collected for a new year period. I effectively think of this as kind of the hyped up version of a weekly reset. So on a weekly basis, I'd do something like a brain dump. I'd review any of my habit trackers and stuff like that to make sure that I'm still tending in the right direction. But this one is very much about preparing for a new year, so it's a bit more of a oomphy version of that. I am really looking forward to doing this yearly reset process, but if you wanted to see my previous yearly reset, then that one's in the top here. In that one, we reset our full house, so pretty much all of the areas we just talked about, and it's worth checking out if you're trying to plan your own. Click or tap on that one, and I'll see you over there.